Welcome back to the 2 Months podcast presented by Shadified Salon and Barbershop. I am your host, Joshua Marshall, and we have a great panel with us tonight. Another roundtable discussion, and we have Sunny Seacon joining us. Sunny, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. And we have Adam Manna back with us. Adam, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're good, we're good. And we have Arjun Atwal joining us too. Arjun, how's it going?
Good man, yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yes. So we have a great panel with us. This evening it's obviously some big news in the day here as the Edmonton Oilers just broke some breaking news early this morning as we record late Wednesday night. But our last episode with Sunny and Adam was a pretty good one. Arjun, I know you shared it on your social media feed there on the As One Hockey feed. I don't know what you thought of that. We'll get your first kind of thoughts of maybe what you thought of when you listened to it, if you've had a chance to listen to it, but also speaking of these two great friends that you have here with you.
Yeah, obviously, always good to get Adam and Sunny together, and with you and all on the same panel. 'Cause it's such a, first of all, a tight knit group. Everyone's friends, and then also everyone's doing great things in their own path. We got Adam doing coaching and coaching kids and GM and all that, and then Sunny's running Brick and all the other things he does. So yeah, I thought it was great. I think this is a group we need to get together more and progress things further.
Yeah, there's some great things on the horizon for that. We aren't just yet there to release all that stuff, but there is conversations for stuff like that to definitely happen. Sunny, kind of throw the question to you, and the friendship, the love that you have for Arjun, and obviously I know you talked last episode about that for Adam, but Arjun's new to this panel right now tonight, and just for the new listeners that tuned in last time, because when you and Adam were on, we gained a lot of new followers all throughout social media, and a record amount of downloads for that episode. But speak to Arjun and what he's been able to do in the community, but also a good friend too.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, like you heard us talking about him last time, and the heartache with the COVID year, and like what I think as a spectator and fan of what I think the Crusaders would have done that year, and then having shared the floor with him in ball hockey and just shared one or two beers, not with Arj, but with his brother Jody. He's a great guy. I'm not going to gas him too much as he's sitting here, but things like this, for me in my lifetime, like there's not been a lot of times where I have reached out to him and asked him, hey, can you do this? Hey, would you do this? Where it's been a no. Whether that's coming out and goal judging for Brick or, doing something for one of my ball hockey tournaments. So yeah, obviously happy to see what he's achieved in the game, and more excited to see what he'll, achieve through the game when he's done playing it. And I know we'll just have a good conversation today. I'm not going to gas at him anymore. I reached my required quota for the year last week. If I say anything else, my head might light on fire. But always great sharing the show with you two guys.
Nice. And yeah, we're just kind of getting a little familiar with a lot of this here, and just kind of engaging the conversation. And I know as the episode's going to go on, Adam, you're going to be able to talk about Arjun a lot more here, but just a quick kind of snapshot before we dive into the nitty gritty and stuff of everything. But obviously Arjun was a part of your team when you were with Sherwood Park, and obviously building a friendship, and what he's been able to do with his As One Hockey as well too. Oh, looks like Adam froze up right at the time I'm asking him a question. Oh,
Sorry, am I back?
You're back. You're good. Yeah.
Usually my internet's pretty good, but it's telling me that it's unstable right now at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
I might have to put a call in to tell us right now.
Yeah.
But I can't say enough good things. I know Sunny mentioned it already, but Arj, and I've told him this about 100 times now, but probably one of my, if not the favorite, players to coach. I've been doing it 8 years in junior A, and and I think 15 years overall. But honestly, just comes from a really good family and was, raised the right way. And, meeting his parents, meeting his, his brothers and the rest of the family. I mean, you can see where it comes from, but Arj he was our hardest working guy. Every single day he came to the rink. He was the first one there, the last one to leave. I'd almost laugh or joke sometimes and be like, man, you're still here. When I'd be in the office and I'd walk into the room and be like, oh, he kind of surprised me, for the fact that he was still in there. But, I just can't say enough good things about him, because not just because of who he was as a hockey player, but because of how he conducted himself every single day he was at the rink, and how he communicated with us as his staff, and specifically myself as the head coach. But he just did everything. He was a true pro, and that's why he moved on to play at the UFC. And obviously, if he, looking back now, he would have been going the NCAA route hands down if maybe the Western League route didn't pan out there. But I mean, with the maybe I don't want to say predicted rule changes with what could be coming with the CHL, the CHL and the NCAA, Arj might have had another shot at it, if you could fast forward time here a little bit. But I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on for me. And I know you just wanted a quick snapshot, so I'll leave it there. But yeah, I can't express how much care and respect I have for Arj, not only just as a hockey player, but as a person too.
Nice. And that's kind of for us that are new listeners. Obviously we have our loyal listeners been on with us before, so some of those people would be familiar with Arj and whatnot too. But some of the new people, that's kind of the great person he is and what he's been able to do here. And and as Clay Vanderham said, these episodes are pretty cool. It's like Clay calls it off the leash with too much. So it's we're going in a different little off the leash part here. So we're going to come up with a little cool name for this, but for these kind of roundtable discussions. But they're very helpful. There obviously would be better in person, and we're hoping to get to that point. We're all doing this over Zoom tonight, but we do have some business to clean up, and Sonny has some business to clean up. So we're going to toss the mic over to him. He's got a few things with the brick, some things that we talked about the last episode that he just wants to either clear the air and go through. So Sonny will throw it over to you, and you can do what you got to do and clean up some magic, I guess. Or
no, it's not like clearing the air or anything. It's just I thought it was like a long and awesome conversation about a tournament. I care so much about, Mana's there every year, and Arj has been out, Josh, you're out. Hopefully you guys are out more. But I had comments, Instagram messages, and seeing stuff posted, and you're reading the comments. And two things that I think I kind of missed on, and I think it's critically important to like touch on it, is number one, like the intention of creating the tournament and why it was created. And so that was the tournament's 35 years old. And so back then in, I think, 1990, Bill Comrie, owner of the Brick, he's got Paul and Mike, exceptional hockey players that are, 9 and 10 years old, and all that exists for true best on best amateur youth hockey tournaments at that time are the Quebec Pee Wee and Max Midget. And so it was spaced out, 2 years and then 2 years. So you didn't have something for Adam, you didn't necessarily have something for Bantam. So he's like, well, why don't we try and create something? These guys have had at that time 2 years of Tom Thumb. Why don't we do this? And so the tournament was created with those kids, his own kids, kind of in mind, something where they could, see how they stand up against the best 10-year-olds from at that time, just parts of North America. And then, at no point did they sit there and talk about, well, if Mike or Paul does really well in this tournament, they're going to be NHLers. It was just, how do they fare? And then a couple years later, they'll have their next bet. So that was the intention of it. And obviously over time, this has morphed into, like, we call it like a summer tradition that everybody marks on their calendar. And the other one that's like critically important is that there's always people are quick to point out the NHL stars that have played in it. And, the list is long. Like, there's 360 kids that have gone on to play in the NHL, and that's whether they played one game or they're, Bedard or Matthews, and they're going to be franchise players. But the list of players that are in the NHL that had nothing to do with the brick is far longer. And so it's also important to know that the tournament committee, the founders, they never intended for that to be like a selling point or something that we hang our shingle on. It's just that's what happened, and the tournament evolved. And as we've gotten on within the years and training plans have changed, I suspect the number of kids that play in the tournament and go on to the NHL will increase, assuming that a 10-year-old that has developed those habits and that skill continue to love the game and continue to, they don't fall a girl and meet a girl and fall in love at 12, get their heart broken and want to play. They don't start a different sport, but all that can happen. But it's just what I wanted to be very clear is like, that's not, again, what the tournament is about. Sure, we're proud of it and it's a cool stat for us to like reflect on. But again, it's ultimately all we care about creating is an environment that is like an NHL experience, because we understand that the vast majority of those kids will never get to the NHL. And a lot of them might not even go to the max, like the Quebec Pee Wee, or, life will get in the way. So we just want that week to be the best possible week for those kids and their families. And that's it. Mic drop. We don't have to talk brick again for a while, but I just, when I look back at the episode, I was like, I missed mentioning that. So that's it. It's out of my system. And yeah, unless anyone wanted to touch on it. So
Adam, you want to add anything to that there too? And very well said by you, Sonny. Adam, you have anything to add?
Yeah, not too much. I mean, Sonny made the points clear, but for example, my brother ended up playing with Mike in junior in St. Albert, right? So we got to know Bill and the family well. So I don't know Sonny, as Bill popped by the tournament in the last few years,
yeah,
because he used to come every year, right?
he's been around. Like I don't think I've seen him since COVID, but up until COVID, it was like more unusual to not see him than not. Like it was like he made a point of being there at some point, because it's still like, something that matters so much to him.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, that just speaks to, who they are and the Comries and, what they wanted to create, like Sonny said, right, originally. And for him to keep coming back, like, I mean, his kids are they're grown up, they're way older, and he still wants to come back to the tournament, support it, and just see how everything's going, right? So it's pretty impressive. And yeah, I was just wondering, because sometimes I'm there at different points of the day, so maybe I miss him. But if he was there, but I haven't seen him since COVID either. So I was just kind of checking in on that.
Right on. And Arjun, do you want to add to anything that Sonny was saying there? I know it's a tournament that you've checked out quite over the years for sure, but anything you want to kind of add to what he had kind of was saying there?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic tournament. Just all in, all out. Just creates a buzz. People look forward to it. Even a lot of people that don't know much about hockey, they're just walking through the mall. Kind of, you walk by and you feel a good atmosphere, just a good vibe, and something fun to see, something interesting, something new, and something different. Like Sonny mentioned, like there is no competition where 10-year-olds are prepping for a month, 2 months, getting their jerseys, their gloves, and all that, and kind of get that junior pro feel at that age. And the talent you see the last, I'd say, few years has been pretty exceptional for 10-year-olds. Because I feel like if you go back 10 years, it's the kids were good, but now it's like they're making 18-year-old, 19-year-old moves at 10. So it's pretty exceptional. And like Sonny said, I'm interested to see how far it can go, and the number of pros that the tournament has in the future, because the talent is just getting so good at such a young age, and it's honestly impressive to see. And yeah, I definitely will be out more, because I'm excited myself to see kind of what the limits are on it, and it's always a good time to be there.
And even just to jump in real quick, like with the stuff that happens behind the scenes. I mean, for example, I'll just use Team Brick because I'm fortunate to know the whole staff well, and obviously Sonny's right in there with all of them as well. But they do the jersey presentations, I think a week prior to the tournament, or a few days before, and then they bring in all the former alumni. that have played for Team Brick, right? And it was a great idea by the staff. And you have players, and again, I only know who's there, on a given year, but Matt Savoy is one of them. And just obviously got traded back to the Oilers. And, so the kids get to, get their jerseys, and then they get to accept them from some of those previous alumni players that have played in the tournament, but have, moved on to bigger and better things as well. So pretty cool experience. Again, not just about the hockey, but you get presented with your jersey, and you get to, meet one of the players you might be looking up to at the higher levels.
Yeah. Nice. Very well said. Awesome. And we'll move on. Anything else you guys want to add before we jump on to some hockey NHL stuff, and then we'll get into some story time? I don't know if you guys have anything to add there, but perfect. So we normally do our podcast through a company called Anchor. So today is our first episode where I'm kind of going it off a little bit of a harder way to edit. So just a quick thing to let people know, as you would listen to this podcast, it's going to sound a bit different than you have in the previous 267 episodes, as this is 268. But we are looking for a producer, someone to edit the podcast. So if someone knows someone that's looking for employment and wants to be a producer of our podcast, even if you guys know someone, pass it along. We'll get in touch with us. Send us a DM over our Instagram or Twitter or even Facebook. So if you're looking to edit, please let us know. So we normally, the website I do it through, I can do all that stuff, and now it's a bit harder now. So we'll figure that part out and get someone in that role as best we can. And also, we have 2 new sponsors joining us this month, Manscaped. So use the promo code 2mutts at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your order. I got to get you guys set up with some Manscaped gear here. So get you guys some free packages. You go to the manscaped.com and use the promo code 2mutts at checkout. As they say, your balls will thank you. So in their slogan, but we'll definitely get our team set up with some Manscaped gear. I know Vernon Fiddler is just getting his stuff. Him and his son Blake are getting their stuff out in Dallas, Texas. So we'll probably see a post on that sometime this week. And SeatGeek is back with us as well too. So use the promo code 2muttspod to get $20 off your ticket purchases. That's the promo code 2muttspod at SeatGeek.com. So if you're going to any kind of concerts or movie or theater events or any sporting events, check that out. All right, let's get into some Oilers hockey talk real quick. Obviously, some breaking news as the Oilers announced Stan Bowman as their VP of hockey operations and general manager. I would say our podcast broke it first. I know had a lot of people saying, Frank Saravalli broke it first. Whatever, it is what it is. It was kind of a bad secret to kind of hide. It was pretty much all news that was going to be put out there at some point, and it sure was, and that's the theme it went to. I know Mark Hunter interviewed for it. It sounds like Mark Hunter wasn't going to get the autonomy that he kind of wanted, and didn't want to leave where he was in London to kind of come over here. He was with the Leafs before, but wasn't enticing enough for him to leave the junior ranks to come to the NHL ranks. And then I know Brian Lawton interviewed for it, but Stan Bowman's the guy. There's a lot of varied opinions. Everyone's got their own way of how they want to feel about it. We're going to get everyone's thoughts on it for sure. I do think the Respect Group is a group that I've done some work with, and also the Child Advocacy Center in Red Deer. All this stuff ties into Sheldon Kennedy. And with Sheldon Kennedy, him coming out and speaking and endorsing this, I think it's the right move for, the Oilers. I do believe in second chances. It was probably a theme that I think maybe everyone here will agree with, and everyone will have their opportunity to kind of voice their opinion on it. But I think it's a good hire. I think the work Stan has done in the last year and a half, and his press conference today was really good in detailing it. And the fact that Kyle Beach was able to endorse him getting back in the NHL, not only just having a conversation with Stan, but also having the conversation with Jeff Jackson and the Oilers, and obviously the NHL reinstating him. That's the most important thing, is that Kyle was endorsing this to kind of come back. And obviously none of us will sit here and condone any of that stuff. What happened to Kyle was awful. The interview that he did with TSN was hard to watch. The Jenner and Block report, if anyone's read it, I have. That is a hard report, but there's a lot of things in there. John McDonough didn't handle it properly, and that's where it was told. At the time when Stan was in his first year as general manager with the Blackhawks when this happened, he's going off saying that it's going to be taken care of at the top, and it wasn't. So he had lost his job for 2.5 years, and he's done the work, and he's put in the work, and he's going to continue to do the work. I'm going to throw the question to you first, Sonny, and what are your thoughts on this? You're a big Oilers fan. You might be the voice of most Oilers fans on this podcast, and where are you at with a lot of this and what you have looked into and read, and your comments on it for sure. Go ahead.
I guess like my first reaction was not surprised. Like the Oilers have always been kind of like that team of second chances, kind of as you mentioned. Like you go, I mean, just in the past couple of years, like Perry this year, like to some degree Kane. You go back a ways, you can look like even guys like Habby Boulin or going way back, Mac T, like people make mistakes, and I like that the Oilers try to look at the work that people have done since the mistakes, and what they can do to a hockey team, and what they can do with like a good support system around them. So that was just to touch on the not in surprise part. Stan Bowman, had nothing ever happened, I think most Oilers fans would be jumping for joy hearing that someone with that pedigree, with the father that he had growing up around the game, to have someone like that. And yeah, people are going to say that Bowman inherited Talon's team and got the cups, and but he won 3 cups, right? Like yeah. Now to the incident, yeah, I don't know. I try to put myself in someone's shoes like that, and it's your first year in the job you've coveted your entire life, and then you're throwing this insane curveball, and I don't know that anyone would really know how to handle it. And I thought it was telling that he acknowledged that his silence was dangerous. I think Gregor asked that question, and it contributed to the harm. And then he paid the price in the job, and that's nothing compared to what Kyle Beach and the unnamed person suffered. But then hearing and reading about all the work he put into the charter, and like the extensive volunteering like at the university, and wanting to like bring this into a broader audience, and like make sure that not just sexual abuse but no abuse was happening, and like he talked about changing hockey culture, and that's something I've talked about a lot, through a different lens, of course. But I thought that was telling. And then for me, like you said, it'd be one thing if Sheldon Kennedy, who's the leader in this field, or Kyle Beach in this case, who's the person that whose life was forever changed, said, you know what, we don't think it's right, or we're against it. But the fact that Sheldon Kennedy was there in person, and Kyle Beach was like spoke to him yesterday for 15 minutes about like, yeah, this is you have my endorsement. I don't know what else you could ask for. And now it's on him to win over the fans by putting his money where his mouth is, and bringing that culture of accountability and safety and inclusion to the Oilers in every facet of the game, and how the business is run, but also delivering cups, right? And that's not to say that cups will wipe his ledger clean, but it's not going to hurt his popularity in town if he can bring a couple cups to town, while making Edmonton like the beacon for how an organization should be run. So that's what I.
Yeah. Arjun, your thoughts, and obviously, you have as one hockey, and you're part of, running a great hockey program. You're there to make sure it's safe and inclusive for all the kids going in. And there's obviously programs that you guys go through to make sure that happens too. But being a voice of something that speaks to the volumes of, you're very passionate of making sure it's a safe place. Because one of the things he talked about in his press conference today was when he was talking to some of the kids at USA Hockey. They're some of them are going to go on to make the NHL, and some aren't, but their experience in hockey, he wants it to be positive. And obviously Sheldon's experience and Kyle's experience weren't positive, but you have a platform to make sure hockey's very inclusive and supportive and loving and caring and all that. But tying Stan Bowman being the GM of the Oilers, but also the platform that you can provide to helping kids out too with your program.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly on the hire, kind of expected it. It was obviously kind of looming over Edmonton the last little bit here. So not surprised, but I kind of watched the presser, and I think Jeff Jackson kind of through his interviews kind of mentioned like he did his due diligence, obviously on the things that happened in Chicago, and speaking with Sheldon Kennedy and things like that with Kyle Beach, and making sure the lifestyle and off ice out of hockey aspect was dealt with, and Stan has done his growth and really learned that how to be inclusive and handle these types of situations, and grown as a person was done. And then I believe he made his hockey hire. As you said, he had a couple other options and interviewed a different group of GMs, but I think on the hockey side he made his hockey choice. Inclusively, obviously that's why I started as one hockey. Obviously I love hockey and played my whole life and want to give back to the kids, but the main objective is to provide guidance and perspective to kids. So I always tell them, even the kids I'm working with, I said, you can even talk to me about anything, even if it's on the ice. It doesn't have to be a question about the drill we're doing or the things you want to learn or get stronger at or better at it. You can just come talk to me about anything. And the same goes for the parents and so on and so forth, which has been really good. I get phone calls almost weekly of just questions about eating or where to play or what the kids can do outside of hockey or just at home, and that's kind of the main reason I started as one, and it's grown and gotten to that point, which is awesome. And I couldn't be happier with the outcome. But speaking back onto the hiring, I'm super excited. Like you guys mentioned, Stan Bowman has a winning pedigree, and obviously it's through his family. His dad was like the ultimate hockey legacy you can wish for. So obviously being around that as a kid and learning from that is amazing. So if he can take his knowledge and I think one of the hardest things in hockey is once you get to the final, even if you lose or you win, is kind of getting the group back together and getting back to that stage again. And so far in the offseason, we've seen the Oilers almost get better, in my opinion, which is pretty impressive. So I'm excited to see what Stan can do with the roster and like the accountability you guys mentioned and the inclusivity, and see where he can take this and also take himself on a personal level.
Very well said. Very well said. And Adam, obviously as a fan of the game and fan of the Oilers, your thoughts, but also being as the role that you have in hockey of being a head coach and a general manager, the importance of any of these type of situations that come your way and all the other things that come your way. It could be a lot to handle, and leaning on and being told one thing, but not seeing that one thing that was told to you didn't come through in terms of, you weren't in Stan's shoes, but you in a situation like that, but you have, been a general manager before. You are a head coach. Those are things that you're great at. And those are roles that you've had, in the importance of like making sure hockey is great for all the kids that come through. So kind of just in that theme, the role that you have in hockey, but also, as a fan of the game and, Stan Bowman coming in, where are you at with all this?
Yeah, I think these two said it really well. So I don't want to beat it down too much in terms of repeating what they said, but in terms of what you just kind of quizzed me on with being in those shoes and stuff like that. I mean, we're tested every day, like whether it's, you know, in the GM position, the head coach position, you know, as humans, right? Like we always got to make the right or wrong decision, right? And sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. And, you know, not everybody's perfect. I think everybody will admit that, right? And people make mistakes, and hopefully Stan is, you know, which I would imagine if he's back in the role now, I would assume that from what everybody said already, that he's taken the necessary steps to get back on the right path and do the right things, and he's learned from it, right? And if you're Jeff Jackson, I mean, pretty smart guy. We were talking off the air about, you know, all the moves that he made prior to this hiring, and what he's done for the Oilers already. And I mean, the fan base was, you know, like, why do we need to hire a GM? I mean, Jeff's done the job already, and he's brought in all these signings and done these things. So what do we need that guy for? But clearly, you know, like Jeff said, I think in his presser is, you know, he feels that Stan's going to be a good complement to what they're building, what they're doing, and how they want to move ahead. So I mean, even for again relating back to, you know, even us in junior with our positions, I mean, it's like Arch said, you want to make sure the players feel safe in the environment that they're in, but you want to continue to push and challenge them in different ways. And I think Stan is going to get pushed, you know, whether that's from the fan base because they're so passionate and they want, you know, they want to see us hopefully get a cup this year, right? So I mean, his job is going to be under the microscope, but I think I echo what these guys said. I mean, I'm excited about the hire. I mean, I think, you know, as soon as you guys threw it out there and you kind of broke it per se, I mean, I threw it out to my one group of buddies and they were like, no chance. And then, you know, sure enough, today it ends up happening, right? So, and they were like, Jesus, they were right. But yeah, I honestly, I don't want to speak too long on it because I think these two already did a great job of kind of elaborating. But um, I just think we're tested every day, and you got to try and make the right decision 90, well, hopefully 95% of the time. And there might be that 5% window where, you know, maybe it goes astray, but it's how you bounce back, how you learn from it, and you gotta have to be resilient. And that's, you know, whether that's in hockey and life. I mean, you know, you need that. You need that second chance. You know, if it repeatedly happens, then obviously there's no lesson being learned there, right? So, and then that's a different story. But um, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think very well said by everyone here. And, you know, not saying that your group was saying this, but man, I usually don't look at the mentions on Twitter. We post stuff, and we posted a lot lately, and it's been crazy. But I do a good job of staying away from it. Today I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole on seeing it, and man, is it hard. Like even our podcast, like we were getting chewed apart pretty bad. Like you don't know anything, you don't know anyone. No one would tell you any information and all that stuff too. And it's like it is what it is. You're just gonna get your haters wherever you are. And you know, one thing is I listened to this podcast the other day, and it was Impulsive with Logan Paul, and he and you know, and a lot of it because the online world, but he didn't understand where in the world that Twitter was the place that everyone gets judged in terms of whether you did something right or you did something wrong. Like, who's the judge, the jury, and the executor on Twitter that says it? And it's weird because Elliot Friedman always talks on his podcast. 25% of the people in this world have a Twitter account. So, you know, so it's like the opinion on Twitter really doesn't matter because it's like it's only 25% of the people that have an account on Twitter. But you know, and the Oilers took a lot of flack, you know, and we had, you know, talks with the Oilers, you know, up to a couple weeks ago, just more or less engaging in fan conversations and stuff like that. Like, what was the reaction? And, you know, and that was kind of what was, you know, somewhat asked to them. And, you know, interesting that they wanted to kind of know a little bit of details on that. But obviously, you know, the organization, you know, at the end of the day, or you know, they're not going to agree if you fire a coach, and they might not agree if you trade a player too. So you know, it just comes with the business. And you know, I don't know. I beg to differ on the fact that the players were. I thought it was a good question by Tom Gazzola. I think Connor McDavid has a lot of his hands on this team, if not a huge part. I'll strongly say that. I know there could be different opinions on this podcast on that, but I think Connor McDavid has more hands on this team than any other player in the NHL on their teams. I think a lot of say what happens in this organization, Connor drives that conversation a lot. And I think there's a reason why his agent is running this organization. I think that and his head coach from junior is the head coach. And that's just my opinion. I'm not trying to be rude in saying it. Like, I think I know Sonny might beg to differ, or some of you guys either might, but I'm not trying to start anything. I'm just saying, like, I think Connor has way more say on what happens with this organization than anyone that's a player on any other team in the NHL. And it's not a bad thing. Like, he's passionate to win. I get it. But I think what happens, I'm not saying Jeff Jackson's lying, and maybe I guess I am, but a hire like this is going through Connor McDavid's cell phone in a conversation. 1000%. There's not a chance. There's no way under the sun that Connor McDavid doesn't know that this is happening. He's not waking up in the morning and being like looking on Twitter or his phone and being like, oh, we're hiring him, but I never had a conversation. That's not happening. He knows for sure it's happening. So,
but let me ask you it this way. Like, first off, whether that's true or not, and he does or doesn't have those conversations, that's the leader that I want. That, like, yeah, like, okay, I talked to him, but I'm not going to throw you under the bus, Connor, and like draw any attention to you, because he probably doesn't want to have anything to do with it. But let me just put it out there like
and
this.
I'll say I'm not privy to know that. It's my only opinion. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
For sure. If someone told you, and you're running, Josh, you love the Leafs like I love the Oilers, and you got to look at the resumes, and you got to pick who's going to run the show, and you got a resume across your desk that said, this guy played in the NHL. This guy has a law degree. This guy has been an agent. This guy has been an assistant GM in one of the biggest markets in the world. This guy has gone back and taken over that agency and has, dozens of the top players in the league. This guy is interested in running your hockey ops program. You're telling me that you wouldn't be like, yeah, I want this guy. And then the fact that he's got a connection to the best player, arguably of all time. I don't know. I like, even if there is an issue there, like, Jeff Jackson's credentials are far beyond what, most teams could ever dream of.
Correct.
And I don't know, like, people, you're not sitting here and saying that this is happening, but I would ask the same question. Like, you're telling me that if Shanahan and Co were purged from the Leafs tomorrow, that they wouldn't talk to Marner, Matthews, and Nylander? You're telling me that if they gutted Vancouver, that they wouldn't want to know, like, and especially as you're coming into contract years with generational players like Draisaitl and McDavid, that all they want to do is win a cup. You're telling me that a franchise doesn't want to at least show them the roadmap so they have the decision? Like, I think that's just naivety, if like, from anyone, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think it happens everywhere, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Mana, like, you've been on the other side of the table. Like,
my point is that Gazzola asked the question. He said, I don't talk to the players. That's my part. Like, I don't say that when we know you do. That's my argument there. But yeah, sorry, Adam, you were going to say something. I cut you off.
Yeah, no, sorry. I mean, Sonny, you throwing it to me. I mean, Arch, I mean, we're both out of it now. I mean, I can definitely say that we called, whether it was myself or Kyle Chase, who was our GM at the time. I mean, we had tons of dialogue with Arch on, potential moves or, if he knew players that we were looking to bring in or stuff like that. So 100% we would consult with, and it wasn't, it depended on who our leadership group was. We knew we had full trust in Arch. We knew he was, he had the leadership, the character, all those pieces where we could say, okay, we can trust him with this. And Arch is going to help us maybe recruit that next guy or, potentially get that trade piece that we're looking for. Right. So, Arch, do you remember that? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I just think like you have to have that kind of familiarity and that common ground, like kind of family feel in your organization. I thought we had that we could sit down and kind of talk about anything and it stayed in-house as opposed to leak through. There's a lot of times you guys asked me some things and asked me to take it to the leadership group. And then there's other times you said maybe keep that in-house for a bit and then we can progress from there. So yeah, I think it was good communication. I thought it kind of made me feel as a player more connected and wanted me to drive me to even more so to win. Being a part of it and kind of seeing the management side of things. Kind of taught me a lot and how to be a better leader.
Yeah.
But I think most top players in a good organization would be involved in some sort of big decision or this and that. As you said, I think maybe the GM or the hockey operations leader coming out and saying the players aren't involved is probably a safer bet just for media attention. Because if you say, yeah, I asked Connor and if we made this decision collectively, then that raises a lot of eyebrows and a lot of bad media attention. Like you said, there's a lot of haters and hearsay. So I just think even going back to my personal experience that we kind of kept things in house and management made decisions, but I think it's good to have the opinions of your kind of core group and to help your team win personally.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, we consulted with Arj and potentially the leadership group, but like you just said, it comes down to what we wanted at the end of the day, right? Within the management group or the hockey ops group. So but did consulting with those guys help us a ton? Yeah, absolutely it did. Probably 98% of the time. I mean, there might have been the 2% chunk that maybe it wasn't, but I would say it was pretty effective for us, and it led to a lot of good things in Sherwood Park. So I'm sure they're doing the same things with the Oilers, but I don't think they want that extra publicity on because I know for a fact we never said, well, we consulted with Arj, but and he gave us the green light type thing, right? But
yeah. Well, I think it's a good thing. Like our Arvidsson signing here is you can't tell me that Ekholm wasn't texting him and saying, yeah, this is great, and Ekholm wasn't texting, say, Jeff Jackson and say that we want this guy and he wants to come in. And like I think just the connections players have and the tighter the connection between management and the group in the room, the core group can be, only helps everyone in the end. Obviously having player connections and just winning overall, I think it's a good thing when it's not overused.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we want to add on that? Very well said by you guys. Went a bit longer in that segment than maybe we had planned, but you guys good with what we kind of talked about there? Sonny, you want to add anything?
Oh, I'm ready for puck drop opening night already. Let's go.
Let's go. Exactly. All right. So let's get into obviously, the connection that Adam and Arj have here in the coaching / player side of things. But, you guys kind of just touched on it. It's a good theme to kind of transition to that as well. Arjun, can you kind of elaborate on, as the story will go on here and Adam will open up as much as he possibly wants to and can about what, his time with in Fort Mac. But can you talk about your time with him and in Sherwood Park and how I guess what we talked about earlier at the start of the pod, but if you can go a little bit more into detail. I know some of it you just did there on the terms of the consulting part, but how much he meant to you off the ice, that relationship, and how you were able to grow and be the player that you were in the Alberta Junior Hockey League with him and the great coaching staff and the players you guys had kind of around you, and Chase is your general manager too, and all that. Can you kind of elaborate to our fans and our listeners, the great person Adam is, as I've known for a while in the ball hockey circuit too, but toss the mic to you on this one here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to start off, as a person, I think Adam's super caring, responsible, a really good leader, and just a genuine human being. Really good, always fun to be around, always usually in a good mood and cracking jokes, easy to get along with, and just someone you want to be around, especially in a hockey setting, and lots to learn off of. Like my first taste of junior was, I think I AP'd a game for Sherwood Park at 15. I think Adam was the assistant coach at that point. And that was my first time ever playing, and just kind of coming in, introducing myself to the coaches, and I thought Adam was just really nice, genuine. As a 15-year-old, you're kind of coming in nervous, and you kind of just want comfort with somebody and somebody you can talk to or kind of lean on. And for me, that was Adam. Obviously, the head coach is always trying to be that even ground of not too friendly and not too stern. So usually it is an assistant or this and that. So yeah, it was amazing. I went off after that and had my WHL stint, and obviously that didn't go as planned, but it was around December, and me and my agent were talking, and I knew I could go back and develop because I knew Adam, and I knew a lot about him. I had that comfort with him already, and then obviously you hear, and obviously had some friends playing with the crew at that point, and you hear about the development and what they're doing. And I think when Adam kind of got the lead there as a head coach, the organization definitely took a turn for the better, just overall off the ice, on the ice, and just how things were run. So I made the decision to come back, and I can't complain at all. It's probably the best decision I made personally in my hockey career. Came back and honestly just got to work. I was personally, I'll say I was a little out of shape coming back from the Western League. You're not playing as much and doing as much as you should be. So I think we were out. We had I think we were about 500 that year, and we lost, I think, second round in Grand Prairie, and then Adam and me and a few others kind of sat down, and we kind of built our relationship further. We kind of went through camps. Like you said, I helped him out with his summer camps, and I learned a lot. I learned kind of what he expects, the little details each and every day, and what type of person he was, and what he demanded. So I think Adam was really good at setting guidelines of here's what the expectation is, and here's what we want every day. And that kind of got ingrained in me. We had that summer quite a lot. I was skating with him and then coaching with him. So I think coaching with him taught me who Adam was as a person, because you kind of see the more human side, and then skating with him, you kind of see the coach side of what you need to be around the others, and how to be a leader. So I think Adam's development was really good. I learned a lot coaching with him, and I still use a lot of those things in my own camps today. That's kind of where my coaching basis started, and that's my basis of what I learned. And yeah, it was amazing. Going on to my 19th and 20-year-old year, that's kind of where I kind of took my development, my game to a whole new level. Spending summers and having that comfort, like Adam said, we consulted on things off ice, like where we wanted to work out, how many times in a week we wanted to work out, what type of players we wanted to bring in, not even just on ice, just the type of people we wanted, and it all ultimately led us to having, I think, almost a 50-win season out of what, almost 60 games, or 59, whatever it was. And obviously COVID kind of shut that down, but yeah, it was the most enjoyable 2-3 years of my hockey career. I could say that, no doubt. And the development was unreal. Our practices were very high tempo, very high pace, but also very high energy. Everyone was enjoying. You score a goal, everyone's jumping around, but everyone got to work. You knew you had to get to the rink and you had to get to work, and that kind of got ingrained in me, and I pushed it down to the younger guys. So yeah, not enough good things I could say about Adam, but I could go on and on. But honestly, the most enjoyable and the most I've learned as a coach, as a player, and just as a human as well.
Arj, I want to jump in there. Like, so you met him at 15, you're still playing probably at Southside. Then your WHL stint in your back, and then, there was an evolution in you as a player. Like, you went from being a guy that's on the team, obviously good, to, eventually wearing the C, going on the first South Asian to wear the C in the AJHL. Give you a little plug there. You win a scoring title, but it was more than just you. Like, we could talk for the rest of the podcast about what Adam did to you, but like, what was it, or can you put your thumb on like the culture that was created? Because, I had the joy of playing on the Walruses, basically watching you guys with you and Butters and, all the guys. And yeah, Finney, and like, the number of players that had probably career years, and then the number of players that went on to play university, and then, two guys, Savoy and Benning, NHL draft picks. What can you talk about, maybe not so much the coaching, but like the culture that was created? Like, you kind of said, like, there was a standard, but you don't become a 50-win team without a strong culture.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was clear. Sure, Park was kind of 500 team, maybe 4 or 5 games over 500 for probably 10 years before Adam became head coach. And the biggest thing was the culture. It was a big culture shift. Off ice, we were going to spin, we were going to training. We switched gyms, which was awesome. Adam and the management made a really good choice for athletic therapist and equipment manager and Josh Armstrong, and I think that was a really good culture change as well. Another guy we could lean on, another guy that really knew his hockey and just a good person to be around. And I think Adam kind of set the expectation and culture that we don't want to be a 4 or 5 team ever again. He kind of set the bar that was kind of plateauing for so many years that we want to get up here. This isn't okay anymore to take a shortcut or to lose to Spruce or Brooks. And I remember one time specifically we were playing in Brooks, and it was just that's a nightmare place to play in the AJ. Nobody goes in there and has a good time. And I think we had a terrible first. Luckily, we were only down maybe 1 or 2-0. And Adam came in, and I think this was my 19-year-old year. And I'm kind of sitting there pouting, oh, this is hard. And Adam picked me out of the group and said, you got to be better. And for me, that was kind of an eye opener. It's like, never had a coach really kind of go out and said, you have to be better. It's usually like, oh, come on, pick it up. So I think that was one of the best things Adam did was he held everyone accountable to the same standard. There was no hearsay as to, oh, I'm going to hold my second, third, fourth liners to this standard, and my first liners can get away with this shortcut or this, and my top pair can, kind of get away with these shortcuts, but they're still going to get PP time. So I think he set a culture that if you don't meet the expectation, then we have the next man up, and we have 4 lines that can play, and nobody's better than anyone. And I think that we kind of took that as a team and said next man up. And I think everyone felt that they were a crucial part, which they were. I think a lot of nights that we could roll probably 4 lines and all 6 of our D and play either goalie. And I think that was the strength of our team, that everyone felt that they were a crucial part of the team, which they were. And I think that's what Adam was really good at, is if I wasn't have a good game, then it was the next guy up. Or if fourth liner wasn't have a good game, it was the next man up. And obviously the recruitment was amazing. Recruiting Savoy and Benning was huge. Obviously, the pedigree those guys have. Being NHL draft picks and the 16-year-old years they had coming in was amazing. 2 great humans. But also, honestly, even for them, they came in as top prospects, you could say, into the AJ. But then again, Adam pushed them more than I've ever seen, because it would have been really easy for Adam to say, oh, here, guys, you guys are obviously really high producing players, have all the skill in the world. You guys can kind of take a backseat in the work ethic department and kind of run the show. But I think he said, here's the culture, here's the standard. Meet it, or you're going to have a pretty hard time adjusting to this league. So the culture and the expectation was, I think, the 2 things that Adam really leaned on. And it was huge on development. I think he added Monday or Tuesdays, we would always have skill sessions. I've never had that as a player before. And I think more and more coaches are starting to learn that now. But we would have skills, and then we would have practice afterwards, which is huge for development. You're getting an extra 2 hours a week working on D stuff. D are working on D stuff. Forwards are working on forwards. Goalies are doing their goalie sessions. And just all that extra ice time adds up. And in the end, it kind of took us from a middle of the pack to a higher end organization. And I think that's still carrying over to Sherwood Park right now.
Wow.
Well, you can clearly see why Arj was our guy, right? Because
100%. Very well
I
spoken.
mean, it still amazes me how he answers these questions. And Arj, obviously, thank you. That's a lot of kind words. And Sonny, same thing. But Arj is bang on with everything. But the reason we got there was because of him. And I'm the first to say it. I remember having the chat, and he brought up Savoy, but I remember having the chat with Arch too. And I think it was either right when you got back from the Western League, when you were young, or just before you went back to test it out. I can't really remember, because I swear I'm losing half my memory now. But I'm glad that you still recall a lot of these things. But I just remember challenging Arch, and And to be honest, I don't even remember the Brooks. I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it worked.
Yeah.
But I just remember telling him that, hey, you know, I get it. Like I was small, you know, and I didn't have the skill and the IQ that Arch possesses. You know, when I played in the league, but I just told him, you know, I challenged him with, you have to be a dog on a bone. And he always had the work ethic and the speed and the tenacity, but I wanted him to get in there and win more one-on-one battles and win those stick battles. I didn't want him to, you know, put guys through the glass. That wasn't his role, but we needed him to have the puck on his stick more. And I wanted him to get more involved. And obviously, as a young guy, he's, you know, that's normal with a lot of players, is they're, you know, I wouldn't use the word timid, but they're, you know, they're going up against 20-year-olds that are much bigger and stronger, and it's a little intimidating. But for Arch, I mean, he wasn't intimidated at all. It was just more so, I think he just needed that, whether you want to call it reminder, guidance, whatever he needed to be tipped off to say, okay, if I just tweak this just a little bit and I'm a little hungrier on pucks, I'm going to have the puck on my stick. And then when he did have the puck on his stick, he put up 107 in his 20-year-old year, and he had 95, I think, the year before or whatever it was. So I think it worked out pretty well for him, but he bought in to everything that we were asking of him. And I remember he brought up Savoy. You know, Mike was a little bit more groomed by Jeff on our back end. Not that we weren't collectively, you know, working together, we were. And that was one of the biggest things we had within our staff, was whether it was Kyle as our GM, myself, Jeff, Josh. I mean, Arch kind of alluded to it, that we were all very close. You know, there wasn't, you know, it seemed like after every game we were going out as a staff for, you know, like it was almost like a post-game meal, even though we weren't the ones preparing, you know, for the game the next day per se. But we just loved it, you know, everyone's camaraderie. And I think that led into the group itself, and they could see that we, you know, just had fun coming to the rink and being with these guys, because once we were, and let's be honest here, like when Arch was kind of going up and down to start, you know, our first year or two in Sherwood Park was it was a little bumpy. I mean, we had to go through some things where we had to clean up that, I guess, environment or culture per se. You know, and then by the time Arch got back, you know, he took it and ran with it from there in terms of what those standards were and what the expectations were. And then he basically just grabbed everybody and brought them in. And that was the big reason for our success. And I think that's why our leadership was unbelievable. You know, and again, yes, Arch was the staple, but he drew in all the other guys like Zapernick, Savoy, Benning, Franzak. You know, we the list went on and on. We got Jared White in our last year, who I think, I don't know if he's playing ball hockey with you right now, Arch, on the Walruses or not, but you know, that kid was, you know, phenomenal in terms of just that character piece and the work ethic and how hard he played every night. And he didn't care if he was the guy going out on the power play or not. You know, at 20, he was like, hey, if I'm not good, don't put me out there. You know, and I think, you know, Arch spoke to that as well. And I know when I can speak to when they were there in those 2 years, and we went 44-14 in 1920, or pardon me, 18-19, and then we went 49-9 in 1920, and then COVID hit. And we were, you know, I think people forget, we were, you know, at that time, junior A was normal. You know, and when I say normal, I mean, there wasn't all this animosity between leagues and Hockey Canada and everything else, and having what's going on now. But we were ahead of Penticton. We were ahead of Brooks. We were, you know, and that was a program that, you know, year one, year two was trying to get what we needed in and what we needed out to fix things and get us on the straight and narrow, and then get the, you know, and then let the guys run with it. And then that's where I think their tutelage helped us as a staff become better with their input, and then making sure that we were giving them exactly what they needed so that they could have success at the end of the day. And they proved that, you know, every which way, because, you know, Arch can speak to it. I mean, the first couple of years, and I remember specifically, and Graham and I are, you know, we're good friends. We had some heated rivalries, and he would, if you know, if he ever listens to this, he would laugh probably, because anybody that knew, you know, we had some heated exchanges at the glass. Arch probably remembers the last time we played in the Spruce, and, you know, he came storming down, you know, because we threw out, you know, Arch's unit on the power play when we were up 5-1 or 6-1, but that stemmed back to a couple years prior when we weren't so good, you know, in our final regular season game. And I won't get into crazy detail, but I mean, just the evolution of the program that was made. And I think after that, you hear about Knobloch, for example, with the Oilers, how he would just mix and match guys, whether it was 3 minutes in the game, midway through the second period, whatever it was, he had a pulse of, okay, Arj is going tonight, so we're moving him up, for example. I know Arj isn't playing for the Oilers, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, but you know what I mean? Like he would mix and match and say, okay, Corey Perry's going, so we're moving him up with McDavid and Nooch tonight, or whatever, for an example, right? And I think just as a coach, you need to have that pulse. But I know after, these guys exited and, in 1920, that was some questions that were being asked from our new guys, why are the lines getting juggled, from time to time? And it was like, well, that's our pulse on things, right? And that's I'm bringing that up because that was where Arj and the leadership group stepped in and said, hey, well, they're doing this for a reason. There's a reason why either I'm getting bumped down because I'm not playing well enough, or there's a reason you're getting moved up because you are playing well and they're rewarding you at that time. And that's where we looked at it as we didn't care who was on line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. If our third line was our best line, they were the guys going, right? And we didn't have to do that too often. And when I say too often, probably 1 or 2% of the time, because these guys steered the ship every single night, and that's why we were ranked number 1 in the country, because we had phenomenal leadership and character, and that's what led to our success. So I know we're going off the path here a little bit, but that I can't speak highly enough of not only Arj, but our whole group. And I kind of look back now, I mean, that year when COVID hit, it was kind of like, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the whole world was shut down. There's, how could we really complain? And there was a lot of other teams in different leagues that were facing the same thing as we were. So, I mean, but now you look back and you say, geez, that was a pretty special 2 years, especially for me as a coach, and being able to coach some of these guys was something I'll never forget. That's for sure. And you kind of wish you had Doc Brown's time machine and you could just go back to 2019-20 and
enjoy life,
get to play all the playoffs.
Yeah. Wow. Just great detail and great insight and great conversations. That's I think that's amazing that the way you guys broke that down. And obviously, it's a group that is going to carry a lot of success going forward in terms of what, you did for them off the ice, but on the ice. And very well said. Sunday, you want to add anything to kind of what was said there?
No, just like interesting seeing behind the veil of Adam being a coach, right? Like
Yeah.
I only knew him as a player and as a broadcaster, and then got to watch him as a coach and heckle him from the stands. But my jokes were just flying over his head. So
yeah. Yeah, I get the pun there. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
And just I guess we got Arj on right now. I forgot to mention how important Matt Berlin and Carter Gylander were to our group. I mean, Matty Berlin groomed Carter, and Carter would be the first to kind of credit Matt in terms of teaching him how to be a pro. And Matt obviously got called up in that emergency role with the Oilers, so I guess he did make it to the show for at least a 5-minute stint in the third there, or whatever it was. But that couldn't have happened to a better guy. And then Carter Gylander, I mean, now he's he finished up his years at Colgate, and is on the path to maybe playing for the Detroit Red Wings one day. So it's just impressive to see where all these guys are at. And then I don't know what's going on since I returned from the MAC, but it started with going to an Oiler game. I think it was either in January or February, and then running into Ty Reedman and Merritt Ozitko, who Arj knows well, and just running into those guys, and they reminisce about and Ty and Merritt were kind of the when you talk about how good those 2 years were, they were kind of the guys that laid the groundwork for what was to come. They kind of went through the years that weren't so good. And again, when I say weren't so good, we were hovering around 500 for the first couple of years, but they just Ty brings up the story of, hey, do you remember when we got bagged on Saturday? After we didn't play well Friday, and then we came out against Drum Sunday and blew them away. And they just remember. I know that sounds a bit old school, but those guys look back now and they're like, yeah, we needed that.
Yeah.
We needed that back then, and you guys kind of knew exactly how to push our buttons and get us to, I guess, get to that next step. But just hearing those guys say how thankful they were for what they had, that just that kind of hits me, just with the person and the coach that I, strive to be, that I am. I guess it's all about the players, and you just want to see them do well at the end of the day, right? And that was all of our goals, I guess, as a staff and as an organization.
Yeah. Very well
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there, but just to speak on that a little bit, is like the guys that were in that room are like, we're all still all so tight, and we're together quite often. We do talk about that. Like, all of us kind of moved on to college or some level of pro or university youth sport, and we all kind of just wish that we had that kind of group and that time back together, because I think most guys that moved on didn't have that. Obviously enjoy it, and the teams are great and the guys are great, but I think that group was just a little special, and there's always the one or two groups that you play with that throughout the time, and it was good. I think that, just as Adam said, there's this healthy competition, just because you knew that if you don't play well, the guy behind you is ready to take your spot, or just the depth we had at the goalie position, like Berlin, Grooming, Guylander, or so on and so forth. And we just had such a good kind of depth in there. And as Adam said, Ty Reedman and Meredith Zitko. So those are kind of the little bit older guys that kind of groomed me, and I got tight with those guys. So yeah, fortunately they were kind of just in like that middle ground where we were getting to that zone. But yeah, definitely unreal time, and not even as just a player, just as a person, it was a unreal environment to come into every day. And I think every player that was in there enjoyed it, and can attest to that even today.
And the best part about running into Ty and Merritt is that they ended up helping me out with my summer camps. That Arj was helping me out when we first got going, well, I guess that's already like 7 years ago or whatever it is, or 8, which is scary. But yeah, ended up recruiting both of them to help me out. And I think they loved it just like Arj did. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day those two start up their own stuff, and because I think they got a taste of, it feels pretty good to give back to the game that was so good to us, number one. And then number two, to just help the younger generation and, make them better and show them a dangle or two, or maybe how to score a goal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they were good at. That's what they were good
Yeah.
at. It was Merritt liked to snipe, and Reedman liked to set them up. I mean, it's a perfect combination.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. I love the good story time and the good conversations, and going down that memory lane of a place that was so great for you guys during your time. And just the fact that you were able to love the game and support the game, and bring the people that you've come across in terms, and and we talked about last episode or what, so about like Jeff Wojcicka too, and kind of what he meant to that group, and the great brotherhood that you guys have there. And yeah, just anytime I kind of was seeing around you guys, or even watching you guys on social media, Adam, like you and Jeff just seemed like you guys had a great time together, and just always good smiles for sure. And as I say, you're just laughing right now too. So
yeah, there's too many stories going back, and Kyle was included in some, and some of those too. So Josh had a girlfriend, so he was a little bit more reserved, but yeah, we definitely had our fun, at the rink, and definitely away from it as well, just like the players did.
Yeah,
because I mean, Arch getting we don't need to go into detail, but I mean, they got plenty of time where, when you win, I mean, you get to have fun, right? So it was good for everybody.
Yeah,
a lot of green lights and a lot of Earl's nights, as Adam can attest to. So yeah, just yeah, that's what I mean. It was just a good environment. Like, that led to everyone working harder. So I think that was just the main thing, that everyone knew you could have so much fun, but then when it came down to it, that we're at the rink here, now it's time to work. And then you earn your weekend, essentially. You earn your fun. So yeah, it was amazing.
that's awesome. Obviously, from there, you have your time in with the Fort McMurray oil barons there, Adam. Might be, I don't know how much detail you want to get into, kind of from like day one to where things are at, and the obviously you're a lot helping kids too there, and growing great relationships and great friendships too. But can you kind of take us into getting that job, taking over, moving up in the organization in terms of taking on more responsibility, and then kind of where things unfortunately left off in that aspect too, and what the future might hold for you too. Obviously doing a great job in broadcasting right now too, but you definitely have a knack for coaching and being a general manager, and as the hockey season goes on, these things continue to move. But can you explain to kind of some of the listeners, for some of the people that don't know, Adam was a part of the Fort McMurray oil barons, and things kind of changed in January of this year. So can you explain to that, if how much you want into that aspect too?
Yeah, no, it was obviously a tough situation. It's I think it's been 7 months since it's kind of went down, and Fort Mac has always kind of had a special place in my heart because I played there. So I owed a lot to the organization and the community for taking care of me. Back when I played at 18, 19, 20, and it's we were lucky enough to win a championship in 06. Which that's what I was hoping for with Arj and the group in Sherwood Park. And so I guess they had Gord Thibodeau up there. I had Gord when I played there. Terrific coach, leading he leads the league in wins. And midway through December of the 21-22 season, he ends up stepping away. And then I get the call a couple weeks later, meet with their president at Earl's, actually, since Arch brought it up. We went to Earl's on the north side there, and just met for, it seemed like 2 or 3 hours, and it was a good fit. We were on the same page, and I think he wanted a young coach, and I know Gord, he also kind of gave me a good recommendation, which I was obviously very appreciative of. We lost in the second round that year to Drayton Valley in 6 games, and Thirsty, Eric Thurston there, who coached at the U of A, was in Drayton, and I just remember that series. It was very intense, very fiery. I remember we had an absolute line brawl, which you don't hear about anymore, but as close to a line brawl as he could in game 5, I believe. And he had a goalie that came back from the Western Hockey League in Jackson Berry, and they were led by him in the pipes because we were peppering them in that series, especially through the first 4 or 5 games, and he stood on his head, and they ended up knocking us out in 6. But going into that summer, the way Gordy kind of built the team, they had 11, 19-year-olds, so you can only carry 6, at the junior A level. I think they just approved it to go back up to 8 this summer at the league meetings. So, but at the time it was 6, and we had 11 19s that were turning into 20-year-olds. So we had to automatically, coming in as a GM, you had to move 5 of those guys out just to get down to 6. So that was basically going into a rebuild year in 22-23. So we get into that year. We're sitting in 3rd on New Year's Day. We actually got into another line brawl against Bonnyville, which, if people were following along there, I ended up taking a suspy for 5 games, and we had a few guys that ended up going along with that and getting either 3 and 5 games. And I guess we hit the injury bug after that, and then the next 2 months was tough. We were running with limited bodies, and we ended up falling to 5th. Not a major fall, but we ended up hovering right around 500, and our group gave it everything they got in that second half, and we ended up losing to Sherwood Park in 7 games, which we were up that entire series. We were up 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, and then by game 6, game 7, I knew we completely ran out of gas. So it was going to be tough, and they were good. So that was the team that we built the year prior, and went young because we still hadn't technically gone through that rebuild since we lost Arj and the rest of the guys, right? So we knew they were going to be built for 22, 23, and then this year in 23, 24. So so we ended up getting knocked out. And then that summer, we actually had a former alumni guy, Justin Rose, who was my assistant. He was with Gordy. You know, something happened there in the summer, and actually right after the season ended, he kind of got in a disagreement with our president at the time, and ended up being let go. And then on top of that, we ended up losing 14 players in the offseason.
Wow.
Which, you know, we talked about having 11, 19-year-olds the year before and losing, you know, half of those guys. You know, we lost 14 the following year in the summer. And that was, you know, 5 20-year-olds that aged out. And then we had 9 others, and 6 went to either, you know, 3 went to the BCHL and 3 went to the Null. And again, that's right when the whole change happened with Hockey Canada and BC going independent. And then basically, you know, that's when the curveball started flying at us in terms of, you know, Josh got called by Trail, and they offered Josh you know, I'm using you, Josh, as the example, but they offered you you know, a spot on their team, and then boom, you know, you could make the decision of staying or going. And I mean, as we're seeing now, I mean, last year was just the start, and now I'm hearing more and more that more and more teams, especially in the AJ, are losing a lot of guys. You know, and players are jumping over to the BC. And the worst part is you got no compensation for it. So as a GM, I mean, you're losing Arjun Atwal, Zapernick, you know, Guylander, Berlin, and you're getting 0 in return. So, I mean, you're losing these guys in, you know, June, July, and then you're, you know, as a GM, I don't want to say you're expected to replace those guys, but you're expected to replace them, but you're not replacing guys of that caliber. So, of course, your top guys are getting targeted, and now you're not only in a rebuild, but you've lost all your scoring, you've lost your top defenseman, and you've lost arguably one of your, you know, best goaltenders. So I mean, now you're automatically in another rebuild. And so for the 2 years that I was up there, it was tough to get off the ground and running, because it was different than Sherwood Park, where we were almost, you know, trying to get the first 2 years established and get what we wanted in there. You know, this was completely different, with basically 2 full rebuilds, because, you know, we lost so much, and guys were going every which way, right? So and again, that's kind of what's happening now. So after Rosie got let go, we hired a new AC. We, you know, we promoted what was our skating and skills coach, which was Sarah Diamond. We promoted her to, you know, we added the assistant coach role, and we wanted to be progressive, you know, not just because she earned that title from the year before. I thought she did a great job, but, you know, you just saw the Seattle Kraken hire Jessica Campbell, and we wanted to be the first team in junior A that was kind of on that progressive trend to say, hey, you know, if she can do the job, she can do the job, right? And it's not just kind of a man's game type thing. So so we made that change. And then you know, I think, again, I'm going to sum this up as quick as I can, because I know we're going long, but, you know, we had a game in Olds, and Arch can, you know, I'm glad he's on the call, because he can kind of attest to, you know, this situation, I guess, per se, of, you know, how good of a leader he was, and what the, not maybe the hidden message was, but, you know, we were going into our 4th game in 5 nights on the road, and in Fort McMurray, you try to plan those 4 and 5s, because you're so far away from everything, right? Your closest trip's 4 hours. It was a lot different than being in Sherwood Park. So we're playing our 4th game. We actually had a really good start to the road trip. We were 2-1. We were set up to say, hey, if we get 3 out of 4 on this trip, that's a really good trip. So we go into Olds, and despite where Olds was at, Scotty Atkinson always has their teams working extremely hard. They always play hard. They work hard. You can't take a shift off. And if you're not prepared, they're going to beat you. You know, even if they do lack maybe, you know, talent per se, you know, they definitely make up for it with determination and character. So, you know, we were in our coach's room, which was not far away from the you know, kind of the players' rooms. And I could hear guys talking about non-hockey stuff, talking about, well, you know, did you see this guy's girlfriend? You know, who's dating who? You know, this, that, the other, and their heads were clearly not in the right frame of mind, right? And we're trying to, again, kind of what Arch talked about, with building that culture or that environment that this isn't okay. Like you can talk about that well prior to the game. I don't care. But when you're at the rink, it's you come to the rink and you get to work. So we talked about it as a staff and we said, okay, well, we're going to address this prior to the game. So we went into the, they didn't know we could hear this conversation. So we go into the pregame meeting and I basically just gave them the heads up of, hey, we heard, 3 or 4 guys talking about this. So whoever those guys were, we got to tighten it up. And we got to make sure that our heads are into this game because we have a chance to take 3 out of 4. We know these guys are going to be tough. And if we're not ready to go, we're going to lose. We're not going to get the result that we want. So sure enough, we challenge them to have a good off ice warm up, good on ice warm up, so that we're ready for puck drop. 8 minutes in, we take 2 penalties, 2 undisciplined penalties. They go up 2-0 in the first 8. So there's a media timeout that comes up at around the 12-minute mark. And, obviously I was not happy because I gave him the precursor warning that this could happen. And of course, they don't believe you until it does happen. So I basically said to him at the media timeout, I hate to say I told you so, but this is what we were warning you about. So now you guys are going to have to dig your way out of this. And they kind of looked at it as we were basically giving up on the game, which was not the case at all. It was more so of you guys dug your way into this hole now. Now you're going to have to dig your way out because we tried to prepare you beforehand and it clearly went in one ear and out the other. So, and now you're finding out, right? So, I mean, I won't use the Evander Kane line, but we found out. So, I mean, we ended up battling back, give the guys credit. We ended up losing in a shootout. So we got a point. We went 2-1-1 on the trip. When we got back from the trip, we talked with our leadership group just as we would have with Arj and the guys. If there was, so apparently there was guys that were confused as to why the message was what it was at the media timeout and so forth. And so we explained to the leadership group that there was a purpose behind that. If you guys want to be helped, then you need to reciprocate that back the other way. And by us not being mentally prepared for the game, that told us that we weren't ready to play and that you didn't want our help because we, as Arch would know, we put up the pre-scout packages every single game. We put in all the video work. We make sure our guys are prepared like no other. So when that stuff doesn't, and I get it, it's going to happen from time to time, but when it happens that way, you're frustrated, right? And you're trying to give them the best chance to have success. So fast forward to December, the BCHL strikes again. We lose we lose one of our top 4 D to Nanaimo. He gets a call. And the unfortunate part was we were sending, well, not sending a message, but we felt he needed a breather. He was a 19-year-old D-man and we loved him. He was a great kid and we ended up scratching him against Okotoks. And then I think that's right when Nanaimo started calling. And then it was like, okay, now, they're kind of in his head, they're kind of saying, hey, you didn't play last game, maybe you should get out of there type thing. And sure enough, come December, just, midway through December, he comes in and like I said, he's a great kid.
Yeah.
I wish we could have kept him, but he said, they're offering me this and this, is an opportunity for me to try and go for it. So I said, we're not going to stop you. I mean, we only want guys that want to be here. And he was emotional about it. So I know he cared, but you had to respect his decision. And really, there was nothing you could really do about it, because these guys can just up and sign somewhere else now. Whereas when Arch was playing, I mean, you had to execute a trade.
Yep.
Right. So in a way, those guys do have a lot more power now in terms of, if they're not getting what they want or what their needs are, they're going to potentially jump ship. So and I think couple that with, there was a lot of toxicity just from outside noise. I had talks with our president and our board about billets being on the board. I think that's a conflict of interest because, players are going to lean on their billets. for, you know, if things aren't going well at the rink, or, you know, maybe they didn't have a good day or whatever, you know, and they're not happy maybe with their ice time, they're going to lean on their billets for that sounding board. And then that's what's going to come back to, you know, into that room, and then it's going to be conflicted, right? Which it shouldn't be. So I think there was some background noise from November on, which was out of our control, and I think that played a part. I did have a lot of good support up there. My buddies, I mean, I have not only, I mean, Sonny and the whole Brick crew, but there's 4 or 5 buddies here that, you know, came up for our home opening weekend. They, you know, they came up for another random home weekend just to support. They knew that it was a tough year because of what we lost, and how hard it was on, well, myself, because, you know, you're trying to do the best you can, and it just didn't seem like anything was really going our way. But I mean, I'm not here to throw a, you know, we're the victim or a pity party. I mean, it was what it was, and we tried to do the best we could. And, you know, we didn't stop working, that's for sure. I mean, we were trying to build that team as best we could. But, you know, the Brown family up there, and Matty Decker was our play-by-play guy. And then obviously my billet family that still lives up there. They were huge. And then I had some executives on the board that were, you know, really supportive of me, even after it happened in January, pardon me. They reached out to me and said, you know, this situation shouldn't have went the way it did. And, you know, if you need to use us as references, you know, feel free to use us. And that's kind of where I'm leading into here quickly. Was we had a 9-day Christmas break. So I think it was from the 16th to the 25th or 26th. The players got back the 26th. My ACs ran the 2 practices on the 27, 28. I was at the max scouting. And we then had a 2-game set against Camrose at home. So we won the first game, lost the second game. We actually had both our goalies hurt in the first game, if you can believe it. That's like unheard of.
Wow.
So we had to, you know, I was scrambling on day 2 to find emergency call-ups.
Yep.
And remember, you're in Fort McMurray, you're not in Edmonton. So to scramble and get 2 goalies in, let alone a guy that was capable of playing at that level, was tough enough. But like Arch said, with the accountability piece, we had scratched one of our 19-year-old defensemen for game 2. And we always keep the analytics, and we rank our guys at the end of every game to determine, okay, who's in, who's out, you know, so that it's fair across the board. And this was the first time that we had to kind of make that move with this defenseman. We had the chat with him after the game. Obviously he wasn't happy before the game, and I think the problem could have been diffused, you know, if the support was there. You know, again, I don't want to get into a lot of the detail of, you know, saying, you know, it was he said, she said, and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think if the support was there that day when things were going crazy with trying to find goalies, that maybe the problem would have been diffused, but it wasn't. So then when we had the chat with the player after the game, I mean, I didn't feel I had any backing then either, you know, because it was really just me and the player talking, and that was it, right? So that was tough because, you know, again, we talk about the staff we had in the park and how collectively we would kind of all chime in and have our say. And I don't think that was the case towards the end, because as we went into the next day, we had a New Year's Eve practice in the morning. And that's when we kind of said to ourselves, we have the rest of Sunday off. The practice was at 10:30 in the morning. So we had the rest of Sunday off. We were giving them the green light to enjoy New Year's, you know, as they should. And then we had Monday off because the rinks were closed. So we weren't getting back on the ice till Tuesday, Wednesday. And that's 2 days. And then we were going on a 3-3 road trip down to Bonnie, Spruce, and Sherwood. So 3 really tough opponents.
Yeah.
So we, you know, I kind of threw out to our staff that we needed a, you know, conditioning day. Now I'm not talking about a 60-minute no puck bagger, but we needed to concentrate on, you know, maybe a first period skate, second period skate, third period skate. And again, we did that with Arj and the boys in Sherwood Park, and no different. And when we posted the practice plan the next day, I think what happened was, and again, I'm speculating, but there was a couple players that didn't agree with the practice, and it got to a point where our leadership group came in 20 minutes before and basically challenged us in terms of why are we kind of having a harder day. And I think there'd be a lot of coaches out there that would basically kind of, they'd look at them and say, well, we're the coaches, you're the players, get back in the room and let's get to work.
Yeah.
Kind of what Arch was saying about if we needed to have a work day, we were having a work day. And Arch could explain that to the group later. And the reason we were having that day was because we were going on that 3-3 and we didn't really have any other time to have that kind of day. So let's get it out of the way and then you guys can go enjoy yourselves and whatever. So we explained the why and we made sure that they knew reason A, B, C, and D, and they disagreed. And after they left, I kind of asked my staff, I said, well, what, do we want to alter things? Do we want to make a change or two, or what are we thinking? And, they couldn't really give me an answer. They said, well, what do you think? And the other answer they gave me is, well, we told you not to skate them. And I was kind of shocked by the answer because we did have a discussion the night before, but at the end of the day, they said it should be a work day. So when I've told this story, everybody kind of looks at me with those eyes of, well, what's a work day? Right. And a work day to me would be a conditioning day. We had conditioning mixed in with skill work so that we could still work on, the fundamentals and whatever else. But, a work day could be, box outs. It could be a tracking day. It could be, you name it. You can put a label on it, but they couldn't seem to do that. So that's where I was a little bit, I guess, perturbed. And so
rightfully so. So
what's that, sorry?
Like rightfully so, like to be perturbed to that, like,
Yeah, and I just think that maybe the players, if again it was maybe nipped, where if they had questions and maybe they went to the ACs or whatever, I don't know if any of that happened, but I think that's where when you're collective and you say, well, we talked about it last night and we feel that we need this as a group. Like we ran out of gas in the back 40 minutes of game 2. We didn't lose that game to Camrose because of goaltending, because we had 2 emergency guys, right? Like it looked like we genuinely had no juice left in the tank. So we gave it a couple days to cool down because we had those, the day and a half. I think there was obviously I had a meeting with one of our guys and just tried to get things back on track. That led to, things spiraling a little bit in terms of us having a one-on-one meeting. And from there, they called a players only meeting at a specific location. And from there, it turned into, we're basically, I don't guess use those words, but we're basically running Adam out of here, because they didn't agree with that practice on the Sunday. And, and that's kind of where it went. And, our president and board, I filled them in on everything from the previous couple days. And, it went from, they had full support to doing a Zoom call with the group on the day I got let go. And the group basically saying, well, yeah, we need to change basically. So, it was disappointing because, it went from basically saying our president board saying, well, if you don't want to buy into that environment, then we'll move you on type thing. I mean, it's a business and it is junior A, but it went from that to basically saying, okay, well, we're gonna the easier change is to let Adam go, and that's ended up what happened. So after that, I mean, typically, I guess, and there's a lot of different scenarios, but typically after a guy gets let go or there's a firing, what happens with that team if a new coach comes in? I guess you saw with the Oilers this year, not that I would think that it was on Woody per se.
Yeah.
But you get the bump,
Yeah.
right? You get the bump immediately because, you know, it was the right change type thing. They ended up losing 8 in a row after it happened, and it went completely the opposite way. And they ended up going 4-17-1 down the stretch. So in this case, you know, I would say it went completely the opposite way. And they ended up, after the 3-3 road trip, a handful of guys ended up asking out. So, I mean, I think they thought the change was, like, at the time in those couple days, because they were rattled about the practice, they thought it was going to be, you know, the old grass is greener, and then it did not go that way at all.
Yeah.
And then quickly they realized, you know, they ended up, you know, those 3 games didn't go well if you go look at them. And then they ended up asking out, and they lost a handful of guys, and they were in a spot where, you know, the rest of the season was all over the map type thing. So I just tried to sum it up as quick as I could, but, you know, hopefully the gist was there. I just want to make sure though, like, again, it was never about me, you know, in terms of, like, I wanted the players to have success. I knew it was going to be tough with the rebuilds and everything else that we had to kind of go through. But I played for the MAC. I have a ton of respect for the organization, the logo, and the program, and they run it very professionally up there. They do. Like, it's one of the best ran programs in the AJHL in terms of how they conduct themselves and how the whole game day show that they put on. I mean, Arch, I mean, you know, right? We played up there in the playoffs, and, you know, it was tough beating them, right? So, you know, I understand that it's a business and you want to win. And Fort Mac they've always had that high standard of we want to win every year. But I think what they were missing, or what they maybe were forgetting, was that they've had 9, the president that's there right now and I was very close. Well,
Yeah.
am very close with him. You know, this is kind of thrown a you know, a dent into the relationship, which is unfortunate. But you know, they've had I think they've had, in his 9-year tenure, they've had 7 different coaches. So they haven't had that stability that they had under Thibodeau. And when I played there, Thibodeau was there from 2003 to 2014. So when you have Gordy in that chair for 11 years and you can build the program, you know, he did the job that he did, right? And they were making the finals every year. But you also have to remember that Brooks, when Papalanto got hired in there, I think it was 2010 or 2011. You know, Paps went through his first couple of years. If you look it up, his records were around 500 as well. And then he was able to build it. And now they're just, you know, they are what they are, right?
Yeah.
And he's been there for probably like 13, 14 years now. So the teams that have had longevity and stability have totally kind of controlled the league. And even when Fran was up in Grand Prairie, Fran Yao, I mean, he was there for, you know, at least, I think it was 5 or 6 years or whatever it was. And he was able to build that, right? You basically need 3 or 4 at minimum to, especially if you're starting from the ground up. I think that's you know, that's kind of what needs to be the goal. And Sherwood Park would be the example of that when we got there, right? It took the first 2 years, and then year 3, year 4. And the only thing that got in our way was COVID, right? That basically set us back to restart all over again, because there was 2 years of basically not playing. So that was a little bit different. But I think that's the difference in how maybe it needs to be viewed up there now compared to when Gordy was there, is because there's been so much change year after year after year, that they're competing with the Brooks. Well, not anymore, I guess, because they moved over to the BC League. But let's just assume those teams were still there. They're competing with those teams in terms of trying to, well, we want to win like Brooks. Well, you don't get there in a year or in 2 years.
Correct.
And be Brooks good. Like, I mean, it's just the reality of the situation. So I think that's the part that, you know, everybody wants to win, but it's both the process and being patient with the process. And I think that's, again, what we had in Sherwood Park.
Yeah.
And we didn't really have that in the MAC.
So
it was unfortunate. Like I said, I loved my time up there.
And you still
Yeah.
want to coach. You still want to be a part of this, don't you? Like this is still a big passion of yours. I know you're killing it in the broadcasting side, but I would assume coaching and general managing is still the fire is still there. It's not out after something like this. So you really want to get back going again when the opportunity comes. I would assume. Would you agree with that, Adam?
Yeah, I mean I've been very fortunate to have my hands kind of dipped into a bunch of different cookie jars, whether it's the coaching side, the broadcasting side, running my camps in the off season. Like I absolutely love being able to do all of it, and I hope that it will all continue. I'm being able to teach at St. Edmund Hockey Academy, St. FX. Being with a lot of good people there. And let's not forget, I want to make it clear, like I wouldn't be in the spot that I am unless I had a lot of good support, whether that's family support, you guys that are on this call right now. I mean, all my friends that have been keeping a close eye, that have reached out, especially after what happened in the MAC, and then just mentors.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it was Kyle Chase showing me the way on the GM side, mentoring me as a coach as well. I could go on down the list. Fran Gao, Gord Thibodeau, Kelly Coulter hired me in Grand Prairie back then. It's just I owe a lot to all of those people, and even Ian Herbers. I mean, he brought me on during COVID. That first year out of COVID. So
Mhm.
the opportunities I've gotten have been, I guess not a lot of people maybe have them at my age of 37, and I was getting a lot of those at 29, 30, right? So I don't want to take anything for granted, and hopefully something else will come along. I mean, I've been in the running for a few jobs in the Western Hockey League, and even a minor pro job, but nothing's kind of materialized. So we'll just keep kind of
Trucking along as we can.
knocking on the door until maybe the door opens, right? So, but at the end of the day, hopefully, whatever's supposed to happen is supposed to happen, right? I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason, and I thought the tenure would be a lot longer in the MAC, but it was what it was, right? So, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you open up and giving the candid talk and and explaining kind of your side of the story. And being on this platform to do it, we really appreciate it. I'm sure Arjun and Sunny appreciate the openness too. And I know we rambled on pretty long here tonight, and but
My apologies for that.
no, it's all good. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. It's honestly, it's a good conversation. And Arjun just kind of give it to you there, and maybe just a quick snippet of kind of obviously the compassion, empathy that you have for Adam, and kind of opening up there, your thoughts.
Yeah, obviously, not the experience Adam wanted, and not what you expect. As Adam mentioned, Formac's usually a pretty high-end organization, and playing against them and playing there, the atmosphere is always good. The fans are always bought in, and you're going to get a hard game out of them. So, yeah, obviously, I want the best for Adam, and I think there'll be a lot of opportunities coming to him soon, obviously. But just speaking on to kind of what he talked about and shared, and we had a time, I think my 20-year-old year, where I think we went out for New Year's. We're similar. After Christmas as a player, you always know that the first few skates, or first 4 or 5 skates, they're gonna suck because you just had over a week off, and guys don't do anything. You go home and you stuff your face. Your mom's cooking for you, and you don't do nothing. You say you're gonna work out, but you don't, and you kind of enjoy the holidays. So as a player, like, we kind of anticipate it's going to be tough. So hearing that was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Obviously, New Year's around the corner, so you usually have a game or practice in between. You enjoy the New Year. Maybe you enjoy New Year's too, and you don't let the staff know. But after that, you got to be on your A game because you had your fun. So kind of push it from there. But yeah, obviously an unfortunate scenario to hear, but I think, as Adam said, everything does happen for a reason. So I'm excited to see what falls into his future. And obviously, I know he has the credentials, and he's a great coach and GM. So I'm looking forward to it for him.
Very well said, Sonny.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've ran long, so I won't really get into fully how I feel, but we kind of touched on this last game and last episode rather, where um, maybe part of it is the new landscape of junior hockey and all the options, but I hear that story and I think back, and yeah, it's 20 years ago, but if I had a puckless practice or a bag skate, I would never in a million years even think to say something to the coach, right? Like there was that relationship of respect and trust and yeah, some coaches deserved it more than others, but ultimately like I would run through a wall for a coach. And if I was in a position to be bag skated, the first thing I'd be asking, I was smart enough to be, is why are we doing this? And it's not, yeah, maybe there's the chance that there's a sociopath coach out there that just likes doing that. But more often than not, it was to drive a point home, it was to get your attention, it served a purpose. And again, now, you hear stories about this all the time, and you got to be careful. Like, you can't be abusive, you can't abuse your power, but sending a bunch of 20-year-olds to have a hard practice, knowing full well that they're going to have days off, probably drink their faces off, stuff their faces off, and you have work to do, to me doesn't seem like something that a reasonable youth and a high level athlete youth should be complaining about. So I just have empathy and compassion for Adam, and none for the kids that went down the toilet with 4 and 17 after. Like, guess what? You probably got what you deserved, and you're gonna find out soon after that life's hard too. So, um, yeah, but like Adam said, good things happen to good people, and everything happens for a reason. So I have no doubt that's just a step on his journey.
I guess the part that I left out, and I appreciate that from both of you, obviously. I got texts from 16 players after it kind of went down, which I mean they kind of portrayed to our president that the entire team was in that same realm, I guess, of wanting to make the change. But then I had 16 players reach out after that saying, all the players weren't even at this meeting. Some guys were in school, some guys were, like whatever. And so it was a very puzzling, confusing situation. Let's put it that way. So, I mean, I was very appreciative to those guys that reached out. I had a lot of time for all of them. And it was, like I said, it was just very unfortunate that things played out, the way they did, because I don't think it was indicative of what actually was going on. And then from what I heard after they kind of, when they were on the Zoom with our president, they said, well, our president kind of talked about, well, is there anything like that we need to know? Like what was going on? And they said, well, Adam's a great guy, but we just didn't agree with practice. And so that was their main kind of crutch, I guess, as to why, they wanted the change, because it was, I guess a bit hard. But I mean, even if I showed Arch the practice, I think he'd be like, this ain't even close.
Yeah.
So I mean, from what we were used to in the park, but again, that's here nor there, so that doesn't matter.
Well, honestly, Adam, I think, like I said before, man, and very passionate. Obviously, it's been a while since I seen you until I saw you at the Brick. But what you've done for the game of hockey, you continue to do for the game of hockey. Keep doing it, man, because you are one of the great ones in the game. And obviously, I've even Mike Benning has told me, how great you are, and hoping to have him on too, and maybe we'll do a round table with him and add a fifth wheel into this and kind of go down. I know, Arjun, we want to get you on again, because I know we went pretty long, but I want to get your thoughts in the South Asian night and a night that you were showcased in a way, and even getting Adam's opinion of the South Asian night. So there's many chapters here. That's the great thing about doing a podcast, is we're leaving more content for our listeners, and there's more to share, because your platform's out there and doing a lot of things. But we're going to sign out now. Anything you guys want to add before we let we let go here tonight. And, again, I appreciate you guys taking the 2 hours, the 2.5 hours of your beautiful Wednesday evening to have this conversation. It definitely means a lot on our podcast. Adam, you've brought great perspectives and a new voice and listeners to our channel, and we're grateful for that. And Sonny's always bringing new content and new ideas. And Arjun, you're so well spoken. You're just killing it in everything you do and breaking things down and I'm learning a lot from you guys. So anything you guys want to add before we sign out?
I just want to thank you for wanting to, get, I guess, the story out there, and for you guys, Arj and Sunny, to, for all of you to support. And then Arj, if I do get that next job, are you going to be my AC or no? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe that was an off-air question, but
yeah, no, that's anytime.
that's all I got.
Yeah.
Thank you though.
Sonny, final word to you.
First line power play.
Get Banner in there.
Exactly. Banner will be learning how to take faceoffs, right? Showing everyone how to do the draws. So
100%.
all right, guys. Well, you guys have a good one. All the best to you guys going forward, and we'll chat very soon in the near future. And there's going to be another episode of what we didn't get to today. Like I said, Arjun, I want to give you a platform to talk about a night that was very special to you, and then also talking about again continued success with your program and everything your guys are kind of doing. It's great. And thanks for everyone for joining. We appreciate your time. Thanks for being patient with our long episode here. So it's always fun, and we'll chat with you guys very, very soon.